The absolute blockbuster deal to end all blockbuster deals. Jaylen Brown traded to the 76ers for Paul George, 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. And oh my goodness, what a moment this is going to be for Boston and for Philly. Big Game Energy flying solo tonight. I'm your host, Spencer. It's great to be with you all. James is on vacation this week, but I am here breaking down all of the crazy NBA action we have seen this week in free agency and on the trade market. The NBA changed forever. The NBA had some absolutely insane things go down this week. I say this all the time. The NBA's offseason, to me, is the most entertaining of all of the major sports. We know football is king, and we know that college football is right there after it. But no other sport, not the NFL, not the MLB, not soccer, not the NHL, not any college sport, has the level of drama every single offseason that the NBA does. And in some ways, right now, the NBA offseason is more interesting than a lot of the regular season is, if we're being honest. This is a time of the year more people are interested in the NBA, and then the regular season rolls around and people kind of tune it out again until April when the playoffs begin. But we talked about the Giannis trade when James was last here on our last episode. That happened ahead of free agency. But some crazy moves have gone down since then. All right, so I'm going to highlight 4 of the biggest moves of free agency so far, and I'll give you a grade for what I think each team did, and at the end, I will tell you who the biggest winner and the biggest loser is in free agency thus far. Free agency got started with the first blockbuster deal of the week. The Memphis Grizzlies send Ja Morant to the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange straight up for Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. No picks at all. So the great golden era for the Grizzlies, the team that was the 2 seed in the West in the playoffs, Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., all have been traded to new teams. It is a brand new era officially in Memphis. And on the other side, the Portland Trail Blazers, very interesting what they decided to do here. They already have Scoot Henderson. They had a great year with Jrue Holiday making it to the playoffs. We know Dame Lillard was rehabbing all last year, but he's going to be back in the fold. And now you trade for Ja Morant. So you have 4 guards on this roster that realistically should be starting, but at a minimum should be in a role where they're playing at least 25 to 30 minutes a night. Someone's going to have to be moved here from this group. I don't know if it's Dame. I don't know if it's Scoot for a bigger name than that. Maybe they still star hunt for someone. Most likely it's going to be Jrue Holiday. He's getting up there in age. He was a castaway for that trade anyways. And he was always rumored to kind of not be a serious mainstay for the Blazers. Now, that was before they had such a successful season and made it to the playoffs. But only giving up Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray, I think the Trailblazers get an A- for me on this one, just because it is questionable how much of a fit he is there with that roster, with how many guards they have. But in terms of value, I think the Trailblazers made out like bandits here. Now, on the other side, I'm not going to give the Grizzlies a bad grade. I'm going to give the Grizzlies a B, only because they had to move on from Ja Morant. This thing was crashing and burning before our eyes. It made sense for them to move on when they did. You just would have liked there to be a little bit more compensation there, like not even a singular pick. You couldn't even get a couple of second rounders from the Blazers in this deal. I expected Memphis to do a little better, but like I said, they had to move on. And I think Jeremy Grant's a pretty good player. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Grizzlies flip him and try to get maybe some different assets, or maybe they get an expiring contract, because I do know Jeremy Grant's contract isn't the best. But moving on, the next deal, Kawhi Leonard is going back to Toronto, back where he won a championship in 2019. Kawhi Leonard is going back to Toronto in exchange for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, a pick swap in 2027, and 2 second-round picks in 2030 and 2033. Wow, the Raptors are pairing Kawhi Leonard and Scotty Barnes together. My first instinct on this trade is to say, wow, the Raptors have gotten a lot better, and they have a real chance to be a threat in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better this week, but more on that in just a moment. But for Kawhi to the Raptors, it's simple. The Raptors had a hole in their heart when he left. He won a championship in his sole season there, and then he left for the Clippers, had a wildly unsuccessful tenure with LA. It was time for the Clippers to move on and retool and reshape their franchise. So they send Kawhi Leonard back to where he got his second ring, his second finals MVP. It is a very interesting story. It was one I was kind of shocked to see come to fruition. Whenever people were floating the ideas a few weeks ago, it just seemed like that's too good to be true. Kawhi Leonard was already hesitant going there in the first place when he first demanded a trade out of San Antonio. And then he got there, played great, won a championship for the Raptors, but then immediately left that summer in free agency, spending just one season there. But he had as successful as a season as he could, and that's why Toronto Raptors fans still held him in such a high regard, because he delivered on the promise. But now he's coming back. Now the Raptors are going to be right there in the mix. They definitely are better today. Kawhi Leonard being an upgrade over Brandon Ingram can't be stated enough how much that helps this Raptors team. I give this trade for the Raptors, I'm going to give it a strong B+. They gave up quite a bit of picks for a guy like Kawhi Leonard, who, as everyone knows, has health problems throughout his career and is getting up there in age already. But in the Eastern Conference, I do believe that this Raptors team is now in a position to where they definitely can contend and challenge just about any team in the Eastern Conference. On the other side, the Clippers, well, this was a deal that felt inevitable after they traded James Harden midseason and basically tanked their way out of it. You get Keaton Wagler out of Illinois in the top 5 of this past year's draft. He is going to be a great player. The youth movement has arrived for the Los Angeles Clippers. So now you're going to get a bucket getter in Brandon Ingram, a lot of draft capital to make moves in the future, to save and invest and build a young core around Keaton Wagler. And heck, Darius Garland, really not a bad point guard. Got traded straight up for James Harden, essentially. So for the Clippers, I'm going to give them a B- for this deal. The craziest and most head-scratching move of the week so far definitely came from the Los Angeles Lakers, though, giving up unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033 and first-round swaps in 2028 and 2030 to the Utah Jazz for Walker Kessler, basically to ensure that they do not match the offer sheet that they gave him in restricted free agency. And they are going to pay him 4 years, $130 million, and they're giving up 2 picks and 2 swaps to get it done. This is about as clear-cut of highway robbery I've ever seen in the NBA. And the last trade we're going to talk about that stole the headlines this morning, yeah, that's going to be the one that makes this trade that we're talking about right now look even worse. But more on that one in a sec. For Walker Kessler, who is a very good young center, let's make this clear. He is a rebound machine. He plays well down low. He's a rim threat, a rim protector. He is an ideal fit next to Luka Doncic. However, the Los Angeles Lakers now are in a spot where the only draft asset they have available to work out in another deal is a 2032 swap. That is it. Every other pick that they have for the next 5 years is accounted for. And that's a scary situation to be in when you're still trying to build out a roster and you know that LeBron James, who announced this week, is not going to be returning to the Lakers. He is not in the picture anymore. You have Luka Doncic and you are building around him, Austin Reeves as the Robin to his Batman, and now Walker Kessler down low. Now, it is interesting. This is going to be the widest team of all time, especially after they also signed Sandro Mamukelashvili. I hope I said that right. But they're going to have the widest team of all time. Good fit for them, but the amount of capital that they had to give up to get Walker Kessler, it is very concerning to me. And I just don't see why the Lakers would go all in on this move when it feels like they had more spots on their roster that they needed to fill out. They just lost Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard to free agency. And it's very likely that Rui Hachimura is also going to depart the team in free agency. We already know about LeBron James leaving in free agency. Obviously, Luka Doncic is a top 10 player at minimum. Most nights he's in the top 5 in the NBA. So you know the Lakers are going to be in the conversation for one of the best teams in the Western Conference. But they just needed a lot. They needed some other things on this roster. And I don't know how that's going to work out, how they acquire those pieces. We saw them make moves for Quentin Grimes and Colin Sexton as well. But Jackson Hayes is another name that left this team. DeAndre Ayton will be back. You have Walker Kessler. It's an interesting team that Rob Pelinka is putting together, but I have said for a very long time, I am not a fan of Rob Pelinka. I think he has mismanaged the Lakers draft assets specifically for a very long time, and he basically has had a job as long as he has because LeBron James chose to come to Los Angeles all those years ago back in 2018. If he didn't choose to go to LA in that year, I would be shocked if Rob Pelinka still had a job. He would have been out of a job by now. And we'll see how long he lasts now that the LeBron era is officially over in Los Angeles. So on the other side, the Utah Jazz, yes, you wanted to see them keep Walker Kessler and actually start to contend now that they've traded for Jaren Jackson. And he was an ideal fit in a front court with Jaren Jackson because Jaren Jackson is not the strongest rebounder, especially for a man of his size and at his position. Walker Kessler is an incredibly good rebounder. He attacks the boards well on the offensive and the defensive side of things. He was an ideal fit for Jaren Jackson. So seeing the Jazz break up that duo is a little disappointing, but I have to still give them an A on this deal because they made out like absolute bandits. They're going to have the ability to address that center position, and they did already sign Jackson Hayes to kind of stop the gap there between Walker Kessler and what he's leaving behind. But you get 2 unprotected first-round picks in a couple of years when the Lakers might crater out, and you get 2 pick swaps. That is an unbelievable deal. You cannot say no to that if you are a team like the Jazz and you are just coming off of a year where you were in the lottery again. You have Darren Peterson. You have Ace Bailey. You've got Keontae George. This is a young team that's got some good assets, good young players. Jaren Jackson is your star that you're building around. So I would have liked to see Walker Kessler there to see if the Jazz could take a step forward, but they made out like bandits here. I get D+ for the Lakers. The Jazz get an A. And the final one, the absolute blockbuster deal to end all blockbuster deals. Jaylen Brown traded to the 76ers for Paul George, 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. And oh my goodness, I cannot wait for the Monday episode of Pardon My Take because, oh my gosh, what a moment this is going to be for Boston and for Philly. Boston, this is another move like the Lakers. I just don't understand it from this perspective. You are acquiring the worst version of Paul George on an absolute terrible contract, and all you got was 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. I'm a bit blown away that not only that's all they got in return when I felt like Jaylen Brown, someone who's in the conversation to be a top 10 player in the NBA, was receiving MVP consideration for a lot of the 25-26 season, and he goes in this deal for the contract of Paul George, some picks, and not only all, this is in the same conference to the team that upset you when you were the 2 seed. Why did the Celtics make this deal? Is Brad Stevens on crack? Is what I want to know. Because this move makes absolutely no sense. Now, if you are the 76ers, woo! Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, VJ Edge come in his second season, and you add Jaylen Brown to that core, man, I know the Knicks are going to be the favorites in the Eastern Conference again. We know the Heat are going to be a lot better with Giannis Antetokounmpo there. The Pacers could be back into things if they get healthy with Ivica Zubac, Tyrese Halliburton coming back off of injury. There's several other teams in the East that are making noise, but right now, I think I'm going to have the 76ers as my favorite in the Eastern Conference. I really think so. I'm not considering the Cavs. I'm good on the Cavs. The Celtics are officially a worse team today than they were at the end of the season because let's make no mistake, I know there wasn't a lot of picks that got attached to it. Like, let's make no mistake. This is not prime Paul George that's walking through the door. Jaylen Brown is a significantly better player than what Paul George is in the year 2026. There's just no doubt about it. So the Celtics, I'm throwing them out of the conversation as well. I'm sure they're going to be in the conversation in the playoffs, but I'm not seeing them seriously contend. And I'm also not going to be surprised if we see teams like the Raptors, teams like the Pacers, a team like the Hawks. These are teams I see now jumping the Celtics in the standings. Yes, I know the Celtics made a big move and signed Mitchell Robinson, and that's going to be a very helpful move for them as well. But, man, what are they selling their fans in Boston? I don't understand what this move was. The Celtics, I don't think it's as bad as what the Lakers did in their deal for Walker Kessler. So for the Celtics, I'm going to give it a C. I'm going to give it a C only because I think it's also something that was inevitable. I think you had to get rid of Jaylen Brown. And sure, you get some first-round picks, 2028 and 2031. You get a second-round pick in 2028 and 2030. So you're getting some draft capital if you're the Celtics that you can use in maybe another deal. Maybe you wait for the next superstar to demand a trade and you get in on those conversations and those negotiations. You definitely have a superstar in Jason Tatum that will attract high-end talent to want to pair up with him and create super teams. But man, again, we're talking about Jaylen Brown, someone that was on the verge of really being a top 10 player. He's a finals MVP for the Celtics when they won the championship a couple years ago, and they trade him for the shell of Paul George. I simply don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. The 76ers, they get an A+, and for me, the ultimate winner of this week so far has been the 76ers because, again, you look at a lineup with Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid in it. That is going to be an extremely difficult team to take down in the Eastern Conference. My ultimate loser, though, is the Los Angeles Lakers. Not only does this come on the heels of LeBron James coming out and saying he is moving on from the franchise, he will not be playing with the Lakers in 2026. Then you turn around and you flip all of these picks, these first-rounders, these first-round swaps, to the Jazz for Walker Kessler. Again, a talented player, but so much draft capital is gone from the Lakers now. You only have a 2032 swap. They are my ultimate loser for this week. Y'all let me know in the comments, though, which teams got better this week in free agency and which teams got worse. And are the Celtics truly done in the Eastern Conference now that they've traded away Jaylen Brown? Y'all let me know in the comments, and we'll see you next time on Big Game Energy. This has been Spencer. Y'all take it easy.